Welcome, 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 everyone, to another adventure into reality. I am joined by my intrepid co-host and intergalactic dimensional consciousness explorer, Martina Grubmueller. Welcome to the show, Martina.
Hi, Andrew. Very excited to be here.
We are going to process and discipline people today. Put on your thinking hats, everyone.
So, absolutely.
Over the last 13 shows, the mentorship matriarch, I like that. So over the last 13 shows, we have challenged people to do homework, to expand themselves, to go to self-healing, self-nurturing, to expand to new levels, to go to the edge of their unknowingness. So for yous that are not yous, those of you who are currently sitting in your chair in the chat room, tell us what you like about the last couple shows that we've done. In just a couple minutes, we're going to be getting to talk about time travel once more. So yeah, use. Thank you, Don. We want your feedback here. So everyone, take a second, go down to that chat room, open the box up, and type in what you think about whatever shows that have stuck out for you. Because Martina and I, as you know from the one show, we plan with a no plan. And today's no plan has a plan behind it.
Yes. Today's No Plan has a plan behind it, and I'm really excited about that because we're going to be talking, we're going to demystify time traveling a little bit. So we're going to go into that part of time travel that we normally wouldn't consider that is time travel. And then the other thing we're going to look at is dimensions, because it's quite, time travel often gets confused with where do the dimensions come in? What are dimensions? And then we're going to actually also give you a perspective of the brain patterns and how the brain patterning go together with the dimensions. Give a little bit of an overview on that. And then obviously we're going to dive into the walk-in, which I'm most excited.
So walk-ins, time travel, all the juicy subject matters just for you. So we have people... The past few shows have pushed me to start your own podcast. Great. I like the fact that you go deep into higher dimensions of consciousness. Makes me think deeper and higher. Wonderful. And everyone, just go on there and start to interact with the chat room. Now, Martina, we are at a point where we have done a variety of other shows, and we've even talked about time travel the last show. And now we're going to delve deeper into what consciousness, dimensions, and time travel is. Let's begin the grand re-understanding of time itself.
Okay, so let's kick it off. Shall we kick it off with the brainwaves?
Sure.
Looking at that, so let's go. The 5 brainwaves, and they're measured in hertz. Most of the times you can obviously measure it in different ways, isn't it? But hertz, I think, is the one that is normally what we're using. So and it goes the fastest to the slowest to the fastest. So let's start with the fastest.
Alpha brainwave. That is the brainwave doing this.
Oh, let's go with gamma. It's even faster, right?
Most people don't understand gamma brain.
No, gamma. Okay.
That's gamma.
Alpha.
Okay, so the alpha brainwave is this: lots of peaks, lots of jumps, and no flat lines in between. What that means is your brain is in active sympathetic, parasympathetic, 01100110, processing the information that's going into you. It's also the state we enter during information overload. It's also the state that allows the dimmest type of memories to come in, even though we're active memory creators at the time. It is the other mental states, brainwave states, that allow more brighter memories to be stored. So also the emotional state is linked to alpha state. So a lot of people over the last number of months, you've been hearing me say that if you wear the red badge of empathy saying, I am an empath and I fucking love it, empathy is the lowest level of all psychic abilities. And your alpha brain waves are linked to your empathy. But empathy is also keeps you outside of time. Empathy is nonlinear, and alpha is a linear situation. So whenever you're stuck into an alpha brainwave situation and you're forcing empathy, you're actually creating a dissociative state within yourself.
Okay, so this is actually a very profound point that you're making here, okay? So we were talking about empaths a lot. Now, what you just said is that being empathetic, empaths are actually not in the linear timeline. They are outside of linear. So they're actually not in their bodies. So whilst you are actually an empath in a beta brainwave, you're not in your body.
Right.
So the more you be empathetic with others and pick up all the stuff, the less you are actually in your body, because you have to be outside of linear time in order to be the empath.
As well as emotions don't have a linear time stamp to them.
Yeah. So that's really interesting for anyone who thinks and feels that their empathic skills are so great. What you're actually saying is you're not even embodied properly.
Right. You are making a super skill out of the most useless skill.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I say that with a bit of charge and polarity, because empathy, once again, is the lowest level of psychic skills that you have. Intuition is 10,000 times more gratifying and fulfilling than empathy. And the leap from empathy to intuition is not a difficult leap. It's just an understanding that empathy itself becomes addictive.
So let's actually link that straight away with time travel, okay? Because I was gonna think of that later on, but that actually works very, very nicely with that. First of all, that beta brainwave, can we link that to a 3D dimensional awareness? Would you say that?
So yes, so that could be linked to the lower chakra colors. So colors and times are directly interlinked. So red is the root and orange is the sacrum. So it can be right where red and orange mix is where beta brainwaves begin, where sexuality and stimulation through creativity, not through the copulation process, can expand our energies hundreds fold. That's when we get that zoom of energy, which is their sexual, higher frequency sexual energy, but not for copulation or stimulation's purpose, for creativity's purpose, that floods the rest of the energy channels with this high frequency energy.
Yes. Now, the other thing is, why does the empath misapply and misidentify those skills so tremendously all the time and uses it actually as the lowest skill? Because most of the times there's a drama behind it, right, that they haven't resolved yet. And now I'm going to read you that sentence that I found in one of Andrew's webinars. And that for me was so telling, that connection between the time travel, between the empath and between actually being outside the body and not in a linear way. So this is a sentence. And we were talking about when does the experience become wisdom? Okay? So the wisdom of the experience will ultimately be fully gained when the time of the experience is being released, because it is the time of the drama that echoes through the different forms of reality. So another version of I am self will take it empathetically as part of their contractual system or not.
So break that statement down, people. It is saying the empathetic taking on can create the finality of an experience, or the experience itself is gained when the experience is ended. But there are other versions of you who will gain the experience in the loop or non-loop of time, which will then unlock more wisdom.
So that drama echoes through the different forms of reality. And your different shards, your fractals, your soul fractals, actually picking that up constantly. So there are empathetic fractals, soul fractals, they're picking that up continuously. That's why you can't get out of the whole thing until you finally resolve it. And you have a somatic experience when? In this physical body that you have. So you can only resolve the drama and trauma, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you are in the present moment, right?
Bingo, you got it. You got it 100%. Now, getting people to understand how to get out of empathy, because one of your statements before is what are some of the things that empaths do? They work outside of their body and confuse linear and nonlinear experiences, and a lot of them believe they're running a linear path with their empathy skill, but ultimately they're completely flipped. They're a nonlinear empathetic being that's taking on shards and concepts and actually fractalizing themselves even more by having this confused state of linearity to nonlinearity.
Yeah. So you're continuously traveling through time, chasing those echoes.
Which is chasing your own tail, the dragon eating its own tail.
Exactly. Okay. So that and you cannot simultaneously be present, because you're either there or you can never be present. And what that do
as long as they're identifying with empathy as their linear.
Well, yes, obviously, If you ignore it, yes, you ignore it. Yes.
A lot of empaths lose their empathy as their linear timestamp, which is a complete opposite. It's its antithesis. It is not a linear timestamp, and so many empaths who get involved with narcissists have a secondary narcissist timestamp, which isn't their own timestamp, which isn't their own belief in time, which is why it muddles them up. So what I'm trying to say is to get out of empathy and to get into intuition is to stop using the nonlinear observation of thoughts, feelings, structures, and emotions, and allow your intuition to embody the energy of knowingness.
And to understand that you are a time traveler.
Always.
Always.
Whether you're using Joe's time, Martina's time, my time, your time, 10,000 times, or no time at all, you're still traveling through time. The very nature of consciousness, it is evolving through time.
Exactly. Using your own DNA technology. And as we're now starting to talk a bit more about the dimensions, think of that. Dimension 1 to 9, if you wish, and you can't make a complete distinction between either of them. You're constantly going from 1 to 9 in between, because, 3, let's say 3 to 9, continuously. As you start something new, you're coming out of the nines, out of the void space, you're starting something new. And it's so interesting to look at the dimensions from a time travel perspective too.
Wonderful. So Shari was asking, can you give an example of how the two differ in practical feeling? By you adding feeling, it is in the word, you're still in an empathy. Intuition is not a feeling, it's a knowingness. So the difference between empathy is feeling, knowingness. That's the difference between the two. Intuition has a time-stamp knowingness expression behind it. Empathy does not have a feeling timestamp to it. That's the only way to describe the experience until you've had enough of them so you can re-identify what why empathy is the lowest level of psychic experiences.
So how can we actually, this is a good one to look at too. So instead of feeling, what can we call it? A somatic experience?
Knowing is a somatic experience. There are plenty of times we've had a knowing that's made us emotional or ecstatic. Not all somatic experiences are crying your ass off. Some of them are bliss and joy of the highest levels.
Yeah. So that's why I keep talking about the renaissance of feelings. It's a different type of feeling. It's no longer the old drama, trauma, just being caught up in it, but actually looking from an experiential knowing perspective rather than that. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So Manny, real life example, please. I just gave it to you. What's real life? Your life, my life, their life, their life, their life. Knowing versus feeling is the real life expression. To understand knowingness is meaning you understand how to know something. Do you know 2 plus 2 is 4? Yes, you do. Did you need to empathize 2 plus 2 is 4? No, you didn't. So you can see how there's a linear stamp in 2 plus 2 is 4. I know this. And 2 plus 2 is not 4 in empathy. It can be anything. The 2 and the plus could be 5. If we follow numerology stuff, where you combine the numbers.
And going back to that sentence we just said, the experience turns into wisdom, if into knowingness. I think knowingness we can also call wisdom, right? It turns into knowingness, into wisdom by releasing. It's being released because it is the time of drama, echoes going through, by releasing those echoes of that drama.
Exactly. And to finish what Manji is saying, so no room for uncertainty. No, uncertainty is doubt. Doubt is a whole different aspect of the perception and misperception of linear and nonlinearity. Uncertainty and doubt go hand in hand with whatever dramas that you have going on that keep you in the limited empathetic state without the knowing state.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay. Now it's traumas and dramas that allow confusion, doubt, and hesitation to create false narratives in ourselves that become paranoia or false synchronicities that can have linear timestamps that we force onto empathy. And this is where a lot of empaths feel validated because the reality of their empathy is validating them in front of them, and they create these ongoing timestamps of false validations.
I really like that, forcing empathy to a linear
timestamp.
Validated
it with my empathy.
Yeah.
Which creates these self-fulfilling negative prophecies within people.
That's a big one. Yeah. So beta brainwaves. Do we want to say something else? I've got, it's the normal alert consciousness. You're thinking, you're doing, you're busy, making decisions, solving problems, that type of stuff. And what I like what you said red, blue, and green, right? Were those
yes.
the colors?
The same order of the chakra colors.
Yes, same as the chakra colors, and that goes with the third type of dimension, if you wish. There's always overlaps and everything, but that type of stuff.
So
alpha.
The beta, we're moving on to beta. So beta can have sexuality into it, where when we are in alpha, our strategy is not as prevalent as it is in beta, where we can strategize conversations, even though we may not know the next words coming out of our mouth. We can guide conversations like a multiple layer chess game that isn't not manipulation, but guiding towards a resolution experience. So sexuality is the beginning beta awareness of strategy until we move into the yellow frequency is the confidence to maintain it. Now, each is another frequency of time and time stamping that we're adding to that. So when we're in a grounded conversational experience with a close person that we've been intimate with before, we have that grounded energy, and then the conversation may alter in a certain way where more of our consciousness is a part of the embodiment, and an intuition peaks between two sides that say there might be a chemistry to make a unique moment that may not be copulation, but maybe the touch on the shoulder that person needs in the moment, so that tactile communication and intuition can be exchanged. And this is where beta and touch are highly interactive with each other. A lot of healers are between theta and can cycle between theta and beta when they're using their hands, massaging or energy work with their hands, or moving energy, or just using the comforting touch of a mother that can calm the sympathetic and parasympathetics overreactions.
Okay.
I see your brain's in your wheel turning. You're like, I was not expecting that.
No, it's great. I'm just a bit confused now, because for me, I thought beta is the faster one, and alpha is the one where we're slowing down. Beta, alpha, theta.
So when you have a cycle, its hertz has a high and a low point. And then there's the rule, there are certain wavelengths, the total potential energy in the wavelength versus up and down, 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 up and down. You add up all the peaks versus all the energy that's in the wavelength. That's the power behind it.
Okay, so beta has more of those peaks, actually. Is that what you're saying?
Alpha has more of the peaks. Beta has more power behind it. Beta will be like this is alpha, and beta is it has more potency behind the actual wavelength itself.
Right.
Okay?
Okay, cool.
You're more embodied with light-producing consciousness.
Okay. So dimensionally, what would you apply to that then?
Third, with fourth aspects of fourth dimension, nonlinear time perception with a timestamp, with a potential linear timestamp. And then fifth dimension, high forms of intuition, omanism, etc., in a fresh visionary state where the vision can come to you in a creative format. Like a lot of musicians use the advanced beta state. They go between beta and theta, beta and theta, beta and theta. Or they're running a beta program in the sympathetic and a theta program in the parasympathetic. That's the other side about brainwaves. You can be running multiple wavelengths at once.
Yeah. So the next one would be theta, I call it theta brainwave. And that can be, I relate that to like hypnosis, the state of hypnosis probably.
Yeah, that's the theta state, and the theta the high theta state can be right on the edge of lucid dreaming, if not lucid dreaming itself.
Yes, lucid dreaming, and just before you go, you fall into the dream space too, isn't it?
Just before you fall in the dream space, or the meditative state in which you are focusing on no thoughts, and you slow the wavelength down so it looks like a rolling ocean wave, rolling calm ocean wave. And in that state, awareness is greatly expanded. Yeah.
So that's a transformational state, isn't it? You know,
as well as a creative state. There are a lot of writers who will go from high theta to alpha to write 5 paragraphs or to write a book or something to that effect. They'll have an aspect of their parasympathetic in high theta and another aspect of the sympathetic, the instantly computer to type or fingers to pen, whatever it is, so that they can cycle between the two and not have a breakage in the inspiration or flow.
And also, I would say that's a very deep and experienced type of meditation state.
Yes, a deep type of meditation state, exactly.
Yeah. So we're linking it to what? 6, 7 dimension, if you wish?
So again, this is going to be awareness-based. So most people that are in C+ effort don't perceive much beyond the 5th dimension, even though aspects of them might function there. Okay? Until you start doing regular practice work, raising your power and frequency, your capacity to perceive anything past 5th dimension and have it in your knowingness or have it as a natural experience are very, very limited. So again, you may mechanically be there, but your awareness doesn't allow awareness of it. That's why your awareness is equal to your level of responsibility, your level of responsibility equal to your awareness. But again, there are still higher aspects of us that function in all the different dimensions. Yeah.
Okay. And then we got the delta brain waves.
Yep, which is our sleep state.
The slowest, exactly. Dreaming minds, connecting obviously to the universal dreaming minds. So
sympathetic and parasympathetic are adding no input into the awareness state. And the awareness of the brain travels into the heart. Heart then activates the awareness of the brain and heart-spaced awareness to go into the intestinal tract and to connect to the gut brain, which is getting inside the dreaming body or the dreaming vehicle. which then activates the rest of the lower chakras to enter sleep paralysis, which is a natural form that we have. And in sleep paralysis, the dreaming body, which has got the I am heart activated now, goes on its place in space journey.
Exactly.
Okay? And then the gut brain clearly influences dreams and our capacity to remember dreams. So having a clear gut is very important to having clear dream spaces or being able to remember your dreams.
Yeah. And this is where, you know, we meet the soul families and you know, very restorative and healing and all that sort of thing. So let's say this would be 8, 9 dimension.
Yeah, 7, 8, 9, depending on how empowered the person was during the day. So let's say you had a really enthusiastic and charging day, you might even go into 10. If you had an average boring work day, you might be stuck at 7.
Yeah.
Or the dreaming body's got a calendar and you got a whole bunch of other stuff going on there.
So that is just really a nice little explanation to see that, again, you are a time traveler, you are an awareness traveler through the different levels of dimensions, brainwaves, if you wish. So it's a really nice way of looking at that together. For anyone who thinks they don't know what time travel is or they don't do it just as good as anyone else, you are doing it. If you're sleeping and you're getting up in the morning, you're doing it.
If you're alive, you're doing it.
Yes. Well,
okay. If you're alive and you're doing it.
Let's say you're alive.
If you're alive, you're doing it. Okay.
Now, I do want to mention the gamma quickly. We don't have to say much, but that would be gamma brainwaves are obviously the fastest ones, and that would be pretty much if you do like a medicine journey or something. Can we say
no. Medicine journeys are all of them mixed at once, and the heart and the brain creating this is they're all inside this, and then the medicine compresses it so it becomes a very intense energetic experience. So the brain represents the top, the heart represents the bottom of the peaks, and there's several frequencies going on, but it can't go above and below this. And then the medicine forces the tops and the bottoms to get more compressed. Like when you compress a data file that, you know, is hundreds of thousands of gigs into, you know, megs. So it's like a data compression system that then the gut brain acts as the actual pattern recognition for the medicine journey, because oftentimes it's the gut that's will determine if the medicine will even affect you at all, because it still has to go through the liver for the processing process before it affects
that's actually
you.
Very good. That's very good to know, because I misidentified that. You know, I never heard that explanation. That is actually very cool. So
once you enter the medicine state where your gut begins to digest the medicine, or the liver has converted whatever it is into the way the medicine actually works for you, the compressed brain state is what create the ego deaths that a lot of people have in medicine journeys, because the ego may be stuck in your alpha or may be stuck in your sympathetic or parasympathetic, and the compression means it's got to flow to all the other sides and not be stuck in one place. And this is what allows so many people to have these massive positive transformations. When everything is compressed, everything's got to squeeze into every other areas to balance all the pressure. And
that also explains the elimination process, right? That is required.
As well as the nature of some of the experiences, such as purging, whether it's a mental purge, a physical purge, or top or bottom purge.
Yeah, that's what okay, fantastic. Well, that's really cool. So let me just ask you something. So let's say 9, 10. What is actually beyond? How many dimensions are there?
It's an infinite amount of dimensions.
Infinite.
But
do we have access?
Our DNA skin suits gives us access based off of our density. So we've talked about dimensions, density versus dimensions. The more density we have as the embodied state, the more dimensions we can perceive. Our human DNA skin suits can perceive 50 colors of time. What that can mean is tens of thousands of dimensions are perceivable if we were, let's say, 99% on the way to the higher form of awareness, meaning we've awoken, the world's awakening, and the high masters can perceive thousands of dimensions. Now, every dimension almost can have an infinite amount of life form within it, or no life at all in it, but infinite awareness in it. Not all dimensions have tangible or intangible space, or constructs that are shareable.
Yeah. Okay.
And not all dimensions are a hologram either.
So I read in this one book, it was about walk-ins, and this one person was talking about having a walk-in from the 17th dimension. I don't know how they knew that, but, that must be in order, to get that level of awareness, that frequency and vibration into that physicality on this earth plane must be quite a tricky one, right?
Yes, but most of that is light worker salad.
Yeah,
16th dimension,
I'm beginning to think that.
Which has a myth behind it. So from my experience and from my communications with many beings, just because you're on the 77th dimension doesn't mean you actually can communicate to the third dimension at all. They don't use language. They don't use light. They're so radically different. There's no shareable experience other than a state of awareness of each other's existence. So a lot of that is needed words to help define this scenario. Like there are a lot of people that are channeling the 12th dimensional Pleiadians. And I just put my hand on my head when I hear that because it's a misuse of the words. Actually, it's a 7th density Pleiadian who's experiencing many 12 dimensions simultaneously so that they can have the capacity to communicate to you way down there in 3rd density these gigantic philosophical and ideological concepts and then encode them into your language of understanding.
Okay.
So density will determine how many dimensions of awareness we have and what we can do in those many dimensions as a simultaneous living being.
So this might be a stupid question now, but give us the difference between density to frequency and vibration.
So density determines the ultimate power level, microvolts versus macrovolts. So there comes a point where the 7 chakras where we're looking at via perception become microvolts, and we access our 8th chakra, which becomes macrovolts, and then our 8th to our 16th chakra becomes microvolts, and the next level becomes macrovolts as we learn to operate on the different scales of time that require our awareness base to understand the original awareness that I've started as going up. The original awareness was in microvolts, became macrovolts, becomes microvolts to become a macrovolt awareness at the next level of density, which allows you access to the lateral dimensions of awareness.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Dawn just said, I just turned into steam. Well, that's technically the 6th dimension.
Come on, travel back. Make yourself solid again. Travel back. Oh, good. Okay. Well, what is there anything else you want to say about dimensions and brainwaves for you?
There are certain aspects where each alpha, beta, theta, gamma, delta, all of them can have bursts onto higher dimensions. And oftentimes we call these deja vus or omens, or the eagle is suddenly screaming next to you, and that's something from a higher dimension translating back, or you in the higher dimension and the higher dimension activating the hawk or whatever it is to create synchronicities.
Yeah, synchronicities, yeah.
Okay, so access to the other dimensions allows the universe to talk to you in the orchestra of consciousness.
Yeah.
The many simultaneously existing yous hearing the musical tune, and then doing something with it.
Yeah.
Like right now, you and I are operating at about the 12th dimension, even though there's aspects of us that are higher and lower. It's the 12th dimension now that is grounding the teachings in English.
Yes.
So our awareness, our alpha, beta, gamma, theta, and delta waves are accessing portals to the higher dimension, which are translating it instantaneous for us, because you don't know the next word coming out of her mouth, nor do I. It is a unique flow that is allowed in other dimensions of awareness to instantly translate into this compressed capacity of English language.
Yeah. And that is using our DNA technology.
100%. DNA, the instrument of experience, yes.
Exactly. And we have to be completely grounded in our physicality at the same time in order to not lose the plot here, and still having an awareness what's going on with the viewers, who is listening, what, you know, and things like that. And this is where the harmonics come in, how you know, harmonize all these different elements that are happening at the same time.
Right. So Alan just brought up a very important, your circadian cycle, which is very much a part of our daily awareness journey. So there are certain aspects of the circadian rhythms where alpha is more natural than theta, and theta is more natural. And when you learn your circadian rhythms, it makes it much more easier to access and use the potentiality of an individual brainwave frequency.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I don't know much about circadian rhythms, to be honest.
That's the hour of power teaching we did in the mentorship class.
Okay.
Finding your hour of power when you wake up in the morning. What part of the day after you wake up do you have your most amount of energy? And that's when you actually want to align your spiritual practices.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yes, biorhythms. A lot of people have different words for that.
Yeah. Cool.
That's why time can be so restricting for people, because your hour of power, you got to be at work. Okay. Instead of the natural awaken flow, and then the practice begins your day, and what allows you to stretch out the time of the day.
Yeah. This is why journaling is so important in the morning, because you can still bring in all the dreamtime data and everything and write it down, and the flow. I remember I actually wrote most of the book, but I wrote in the morning, because the flow was just like, okay, just let it in.
It was natural for you. That's your circadian rhythm. Those were in your greatest amount of capacity to easily contact the other densities and dimensions was simplistic for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
So let's focus a little bit more on time stamping.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now, we've been going for 37 straight minutes without basically a breath. And every second is a mental timestamp. Yes. So we've been in
10 minutes.
It felt like 10 minutes, didn't it?
It did.
Okay? So there is a density behind the time stamping, because we were in such unique flow. So a memory has a timestamp to it that tells you how empowered you are to store in a deeper memory. Okay. Now there are times when we are not in our bodies and we are doing low density memories, or not a lot of light, which makes it hard to remember some things in our life, which means we have to enter those high theta states. Are you going to really remember all aspects of your 13th birthday? Unless you have a fully photographic memory, no. Okay. Well, photographic memory means all of your memories have a high frequency timestamp, and the capacity to remember them is encoded in your skull cap. So I've talked about this before. What's in the top of your skull? The skull cap itself is your file tree of how memories and skills are stored, and how quickly the brain can access the holographic matrix to instantly unencode and re-encode memories as a form of fluid motion, action, constant creativity.
Yeah. But then we also have the information that is stored holographically everywhere in the cells, right?
Yes, and the skull cap just represents the instant shortcut to where they're supposed to be.
Interesting. So that's a nice way of looking at it. Okay,
Yes.
cool.
Yeah. So once we understand the purpose of the skull cap, that's what our crowns do. The crown energy comes in, activates the skull cap for what? Instant access to your most relevant skills, capacities, and things you're trying to evolve in yourself.
Yeah. And I think this brings up a memory of an exercise we've done. I remember dropping all the chakras from the top all the way into the root chakra.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, allowing the energy to just come up and get out of the...
like a geyser, yes.
And running that a couple of times is really a huge cleansing and clearing exercise. And then bringing the golden energy in through the gold tube.
That's also the same thing that medicine does. We're compressing and expanding. And that compression, if there are programs or concepts that are stuck in one area, the pressure itself means they have to squeeze into other areas. And then when we open back up, it creates a negative pressure, which then creates a balancing of those overactive programs and concepts.
Fair enough. So bringing all the colors, into the different chakras, and then just come all of it, like this huge rainbow synergy.
Yeah, spaghetti sauce.
Spaghetti sauce, yes. Rainbow spaghetti sauce.
Yes, rainbow spaghetti sauce.
That's right. Okay. Cool.
So time stamping. Now,
yes.
I'm going to ask everyone this. What is your most powerful deja vu? And people in the chat room to remember. What's your most powerful deja vu that you remember?
Can't think of anything at the moment.
It's just because you're on the radio spot. You're in alpha brain. Go to beta. Go to beta.
No. I'm still having a spaghetti sauce around me. No. Anyway, what have I?
Deja vu. Just focus on the deja vu itself.
Deja vu itself. I don't have lots of deja vus. Is that possible?
You have them. You're just not remembering them.
Oh, God. My old thing, isn't it? That fucking walk-in thing. We need to work with this.
It's okay. She's still dealing with the no timestamp, empathy, fake timestamp. Now, whenever you have a long-lasting deja vu that has truly changed you, the timestamp itself is always going to be relevant for you. The energy behind it is the simultaneously existing energy. It's why it's so prevalent in your mind and why it sticks around so much. Okay?
So, and that is not sort of keeping us stuck in any way? Because not all deja vus are positive, right?
Correct. So it'll be perception that gets you stuck and perspective that gets you stuck, not the action of the deja vu or the charge and energy behind it. It'll be your perspective that locks you into an obsession about it, et cetera, which will then lower your frequency of everything, all other aspects of it. Okay?
So deja vu, a simple explanation is when, you experience something and oh my God, I've experienced that before. I've had this before. I've seen this before. Or is there any...
It can be prophetic. Deja vus can be prophetic too.
Okay, now I'm getting interested. Because that is something that maybe from the future, yes.
A lot of people experience deja vu of, I've just seen this. Or I've experienced this before. That just happened and I knew it was going to happen. And I'm watching it unfold with this mystical, whoa.
Right, because I associated it to the past. So now this is a different story because I love going to markets and car boots and stuff. And I find so many things And when I look at them, and they remind me of so many things. So I have this all the time.
So a lot of deja vus, we'll say 50 to 55% of them actually come from future lives or alternate existing yous who are slightly ahead in the linear time. Example, there's us in this linear time, and there's several dozen versions of others who are in fake timelines created by the system, and then natural timelines that exist that is being used by the system, which might actually be 5 or 10 days ahead of us in linearity expression, like train tracks. Or something might come in and equalize all the times are equal, like trains all equal together, and then one start might falling slowly ahead, and then deja vus bleed between the two times.
Yeah. Okay, I get it. It has to be obviously future. I never really looked into deja vus a lot. I think it's constantly happening to me anyway. It's one of those things when it constantly happens to you, you don't acknowledge it. So yeah, constantly I have that.
Now, when you have a tactile response from a deja vu where the hairs on the back of your neck raise, you're actually having a sympathetic and parasympathetic validation. No matter what the programs are saying, the validation is so intense that it just shuts off all the programs of disbelief. And that's one of the most positive tools we have for us in the upcoming awakenings that are coming. Okay? And we can learn to begin to communicate to our future selves like we did in our last show, so we can begin to engage this tactile knowingness that the future is coming because I am my own freight train of time.
Yes. Okay. So this is interesting because, I've with this walk-in situation here, I've started reading a book with lots of reports of walk-ins, 20 different people who are walk-ins, what they experience. And as I'm reading those, I'm having those somatic releases, deja vu, synchronicity. I throw it all in the synchronicity pot, I know this is true for me, and then I have to release. So I had lots and lots of tears whilst reading some of those recordings, what they're saying, because it obviously reminds me of, from the future or the past or wherever, Yeah.
So let's focus on what a walk-in is. Okay?
Yeah. Give us an explanation, your explanation.
So there are many different versions of walk-ins, but the most broken down essence of a walk-in, a soul is born into a body, and at some stage, the soul has a set of things that can go right or wrong, or a pre-done situation in which that soul will leave and go into another body or enter the astral world, and another soul will go in and take over all of its spiritual contracts, plus its additional spiritual contracts of being a walk-in, so it can have a lot of dual-natured experiences, and then it will go forward in linear time as if it was the original soul's timestamp soul family expression. It's like a twin that comes in, because not all parents can tell the difference between twins. Okay, it's a twin that can come in.
So it's a soul fractal of yourself that you have fractal. You want to just call it a fractal?
Let's call it a faction, not a fractal.
A faction. Okay.
A faction that has a very different soul-based expression at the resolution, because the soul that's in there is a part of a faction of belief and ideology that may be stuck in a repetition that it can't break, and it uses the walk-in rule to bring in a new faction's perspective to break the repetition.
I like that faction. So would you say that faction always, as a rule of thumb, has to be obviously of a higher frequency and vibration?
No. Sometimes it requires a lower density super warrior spirit to come in and fight for your sovereignty at the dirty layers against abusive parents.
So you see, this is already interesting, because in the books, everything I've read so far, there's the three things. Walk-ins come in because they have a mission with obviously the hosts they're walking into. They're taking over the contractual obligations. They finishing the genetic imprinting, the karma, and all of that. They're finishing the contracts. The other thing is they're here to obviously help the consciousness of humanity, not just the host. And all that's all goody two shoes, and it's all good, it's all cool. And all the 20 things that I've read of these people, they all said that they've come in from much higher planes, dimensions, wherever, to do all that. So that's actually a myth.
Yes, a myth that we have to break down. And I want to add to this. Lisa in the chat room is saying, I know a light worker who says she is a walk-in and now she is 15 with different parents. That's absolute garbage. Absolute garbage. Absolute garbage. If a person is saying they're 15 different walk-ins simultaneously, that's garbage.
Oh, gosh. Oh, even one is tough enough.
Okay.
Trust me, it's not 15. Are you kidding me? Well, I've heard of multiple ones, but that's not necessary. That could be maybe just a soul shard integration or something that she's talking about.
Well, we don't know all of that. I'm just basing it off of the frequency and my intuition here. And I have personally experienced a person that was born. At age 3, they walked out. Another soul walked in. And at age 21, at a near-death experience, the walk-in walked out and a new soul walked in. And that person became an incredible healer after that. But that was planned between all 3 souls as a master karma resolution for that DNA lineage, for it's the hands of the lineage that resolve the karmas of cancer, depression, and abuses. And it was the lineage of skin suits that needed the resolution and needed the 3 souls to make the agreement that that type of healing was healing the lineage itself.
Yeah, that's what I heard actually, the 2 ways. One could be like a spontaneous walk-in, walk-out, obviously contracted before in the fetus planning. And there is then a walk-in that comes in to actually heal the entire lineage. And that takes much more preparation. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I can more relate to that one, to be honest.
Okay. And Sarah's clearing it up. She says she's in her 40s, and she is 15 years old in what I meant. That's garbage. That's garbage too. Okay, when you walk in, you achieve the age that you are, and that's the way it where you take over all the spiritual contracts or they're being left off. Awareness that's gained after that may be part of a different contractual obligation or a misunderstanding of the journey or a greater understanding of the journey.
Okay, am I getting this correct? Look, the walk-in, and if it is a walk-out right away, or if it is an overlaid soul for some time, the awareness comes years after, and
usually, yeah.
Forever. It's not just most people. I mean, I only figured out I was a walk-in like in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know.
But it took you that long to come to that perspective and perception of potentiality.
Yeah.
Now, somebody was asking if I can tell a walk-in. It's as simple as if I look at a fish taco, I know it's a fish taco. If I look at a spaghetti bolognese, it's a spaghetti bolognese. That's how easy it is to recognize walk-ins at this level of awareness. I mean, it's in the fine print, it's in the contracts. It's so obvious that it's a walk-in. That's how I can tell when a person's bullshitting or not.
Right. I'm not a fish taco.
No, you're a Martina taco.
With rainbow spaghetti sauce all over me. Good. So what were we saying? We were basically talking about what a walk-in is, what are the reasons for a walk-in. So
let me add a layer here. So
yeah,
we talked about the reasons walk in, walk out. Now, a lot of current situation walk-ins are actually a part of a grander contract resolution where there are a lot of people who needed to be in this timestamp frequency but don't have the capacity to beat the system because of the mind control, the social engineering that's going on. They can't beat it, but they have a contract for them to walk out and big brother, spiritual brother, sister to step in to fight the system in a new way. But that's again the twinning scenario where that which walked out becomes the spirit guide, and that which was the spirit guide becomes the embodiment to initiate the Great Awakening on a grander scale.
I didn't have that. Did I?
No, yours was different. Yours went backwards in time to influence time in the past, and the part of it you came forward in time was to be a unique signature frequency of the past, so that you could have a present signature frequency that was future now.
Yes. Whatever that means.
Means the ancient future is now real for you. The ancient past is just as real. So you're all of your simultaneous past, present, and future existing selves as a linear and nonlinear based verbal teacher.
Right. Good.
Yes, I see the wheels. I see the wheels turning.
Well, guys, I have to be honest. I mean, this is something I am coming to explore. I've only started to explore that. I've ignored that for such a long time. So it's an interesting one to explore, and I'm grateful to have this opportunity, and I'm sure it's an interesting one for everyone else to look at.
So we want to take a moment, if anybody wants to type in any questions about walk-ins and walkouts. I see one from Frida Dorian here. Does the walkout soul get to return? No. Once it's out, it's out. It may come in another body, maybe your brother, cousin, sister, lover in the future, which happens quite frequently. Something walks out of the lineage and then walks back into another lineage to try to help heal that lineage. That's another common reasons of walk-in, walkouts.
There is a situation, though, where sometimes there is a walk-in simultaneously, or you have a situation where there's a walk-in, and then for a couple of years, you have an overlay, if you wish, where the in-walking soul helps the natal soul, if you wish, to
prenatal soul. And that will be a prenatal soul. So a lot of times a fetus is not alone in the womb. And this is why so many people between the first 5 weeks of pregnancy, there's a twin actually being developed genetically, and then they absorb it. And these are what become birthmarks.
Okay, so that's different to a walk-in then?
No, it's not, because it can trigger a walk-in later. Prenatal walk-ins are expanding the capacity for the mother's future life too.
So this is interesting. Did you just say that becomes a birthmark? Because I got a birthmark.
Yeah, because you had you had the signature prenatal walk-in, which is what allowed your walk-in, walk-out scenario when you were embodied after the forgetting of the birth canal.
You never told me that.
Well, it's you got it now.
That's so cool. Now I know where this birthmark's coming from, because I was already thinking, what is this? I always knew there was a connection. It was a prenatal walk-in. And
then there's postnatal walk-ins. Now, I've talked about souls hiding themselves in different bodies. So up to the first 2 years, the baby that you have may not be the baby after 2 years. This is how a soul that's super powerful can get past the incarnation grid or the archons, where they've been in the womb for so long with a crappy life plan, and at the last second, the postnatal, they walk out and walk in, something else takes over its position, or they stay in that crappy life and walk out later. It's a technique that is used to get into this reality without the predictability factors of the systems inside it.
Yeah.
No, Trump is not a walk-in.
It's basically to out-create the system.
Yes. Or to stop a long-term repetition process in a lineage that the soul family elders cannot break, because there's some long-term karma that until they get some really potent, powerful souls in there, what's existing in the lineage can't break it.
Yeah, fantastic. Good.
So here's a question from Ginger's iPhone. So does the prenatal or postnatal walk-ins have issues with feeling connected to the mother? It depends what the mother's lineage karma is. If the mother's mother had a good quality birth, no. If the mother's mother didn't have a quality birth, yes. But most situations where you feel disconnected, it's from the mother or the earth mother. It's something in your environment of that current life that's created that. And it's part of your karmic journey to reconnect to the mother and great mother expression. Again, part of the source disconnection schools we go through.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people are getting insights here.
Mm-hmm.
Here's one from Lillian. My dad died 3 days after my daughter was born. She has birthmarks and felt deep sorrow for her grandfather. That's not a walk-in, that's a guide scenario where one passes on and becomes the guide for another one in their lineage, so they don't make the common lineage mistakes.
Very cool.
So here I'm going to bring up a mind twister for a walk-in. Okay. You have a set of twins that are born. One twin at a young age decides to walk out. Are they still identical twins? Well, they're identical twins to start with. One walks out. Are they still identical twins?
Identical in terms of the looks?
Gene, DNA, everything.
Yeah, because the walk-in takes over the DNA instrument. Having said that, even when the walk-in takes over the DNA instrument, sometimes there can occur changes in the physicality.
Because the faction that is in the twin has a different perspective. And oftentimes, things that were thought to be identical twins become fraternal twins, paternal twins. The DNA actually changes enough because the faction's perspective of life is so radically different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is why so many walk-ins report that once they have walked in, their life has completely changed. They can't relate to their husbands, to their children, to their work, to anything.
Because the faction's perspective is so radically different.
Yeah. Having said that, the faction that walks in has still the responsibility to finish off the contracts and, the genetic imprinting of the initial soul.
Yes. So somebody's action, can you define what faction means? A Democrat is a faction. A Republican is a faction. But soul-based factions follow an ideology of how to create and resolve karmas, create dharmas. They do life and plan lives in very different ways. So when they're in the astral world, they're learning from teachers in the astral world that help create these factions of belief that incarnate these journeys of conceptualization of an ideology that is meant as part of the infinite experiencing of life.
Yeah. Because as a walk-in, there's a lot of planning that is going on that has to happen.
No, not all people are mentioning about, not all birthmarks represent walk-ins. There are certain birthmarks that come from lineage issues itself or at actual past life trauma that manifests in the current life trauma. So another mind twister here. So we talked about twins, near-death experiences. A lot of people have these near-death experiences and they come out completely changed on the other side, but they're not walk-ins. They changed factions.
They changed factions.
Yes. The near-death experience allowed them to realize the old way of going along was not going to generate the change that they wanted, and the teachers in the near-death experience and the light beings that began to repair them and put them back in the body helped them change ideological factions.
Mm-hmm. Can we compare those factions to the agencies?
Yes.
Yeah.
The themes of the agencies.
The themes of the agencies can change, and that's not a walk in then. Yeah.
That's just a changing of the ideology.
And
that's where a lot of light worker salad bullshit is created about walk-ins.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is a topic that is not obviously so common. And I think that's why, when I started looking into it a bit more, there's not even much literature out there, to be honest. This book I just grabbed now, I mean, this is apparently written just this year. So, yeah. But there was a time, I can't remember now, was it 2014, 2016, where we had 700,000 walk-ins, as you were saying on, and they all walked into...
Yes, that's the faction change. That's what I was just talking about before, where those that were embodied knew they couldn't beat the mind control, the drama, materialism, and consumerism. They weren't advanced enough with the lineage limitations they have. And so they had an agreement to walk out so the powerful brothers and sisters could walk in and create the change. It was actually 7 million or 70 million.
70 million. But wasn't it instigated by the prime creator?
Correct, as part of the audit.
As part of the audit, right.
Yes.
Exactly. And these people
that determined how cooked the karmic books were.
Yeah. So was it 2014?
Yes.
Yeah. So these were mostly people like in managerial positions and stuff like that. So 6 years now, they obviously had quite a bit of time to integrate that. And this is probably also part of the changes that you're seeing now, right? Why,
absolutely.
So just breaking open. And
that's why we're seeing a lot of people at the corporate level turn to spirituality because they can't sell their soul anymore.
Exactly.
Okay? They got the white picket fence and now they don't want it. They realized it was an illusion.
Yeah.
Okay, 70 million is a very small percentage of our population. It's like 0.01 or 0.001. Okay?
70.
Actually, 0.0001, the 1,000th.
Yeah. Well, it's not something that just happens. It's something you have to actually prepare for. In the fetus already, to a certain extent, in the fetus programming.
Well, the preparation is what is the fetus going to do when it has access to the infinite blueprint of synchronicities on many frequencies of time that you're going to be simultaneously existing at as a multi-I am with an oversoul and an avatar.
I mean, what I'm saying is you can't just say, oh, my life sucks, and I want to have a walk-in, so let's just organize it and get on with it.
I had somebody call the show about 6 months ago and demanded I tell him how he can walk out and somebody else take over. I said, that's suicide.
Yeah.
Okay? And that person's extremely depressed about their life, but Lightworker Salad convinced he could just invite a walk-in. I'm like, no, you're invited to get yourself haunted.
Yeah, because this is actually portrayed, even now reading in the book, it's like people saying, oh, I was so depressed and I called out for it. And the next thing, the light came in. I'm thinking, what am I missing here? I didn't get any of that. Would have been nice to have that, to know. But
those are people who don't truly understand the very nature of light-based experiences, who are trying to validate their experience before they've even processed it. And unfortunately, they wound up writing books that are very deceptive to the modern New Ager.
Well, I mean, look, I'm not judging it. I'm not taking that experience away. If it works for them, then that's fine. It's just interesting for me because I'm looking for more details and thinking, oh shit, I didn't have this, I didn't have that, I didn't have that. So
But there are other things you're realizing you have. Just like before the show when we were talking about me recognizing I've had an unnatural life and you beginning to realize you haven't been living the normal life. And in fact, you've been living a very unnormal life for a very long time, but unnormal is normal for you.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, it's getting clearer and clearer now as I'm starting to look at it more. Absolutely. So what is the actually, when we talk about that, I don't know if there's anything in this book, they were saying that some people could almost remember how the procedure was as the soul came in, the separation of the nerves and the compatibility with the vehicle, obviously, the DNA instrument afterwards, and how. So what is the real thing here? How does it really?
And what you're describing is a faction change, where the walk-in was a radically different faction, and they had to figure out how to get the helical DNA to work with a different, because the lineage was only programmed to accept this type of faction.
Okay, so then give us an example of a real walk-in situation from that perspective.
Okay, we'll use an abuse scenario. So somebody that's going to experience not sexual abuse, but verbal and emotional abuse from a very young age. So the original soul is coming in to experience that from a young age because it's not good at dealing with it, and it can't plan a powerful life because the verbal abuse at such a young age is so potent and so powerful. And there comes a point where the verbal abuse reaches so much, it triggers the walk-in contract, where the one that's there says, I've had enough. I understand that my current belief and ideology as a faction-based soul in this lineage cannot out create my mother and father's limitations being enforced on me. I walk out. The new soul comes in, which has a completely new faction to be able to deal with that. And then the DNA in the lineage that is saying you're going to be verbally abused, because that's what the lineage, the last 7 generations of the lineage is. That soul comes in with a hardened energy that the DNA must accept. And that's where that vision of what you were describing of all the different changes, so that you can get the square peg into the round hole, or multidimensional peg into the multidimensional hole. And once they fit, the child changes and goes, don't talk to me like that. Or we'll begin a whole different process of sending energy to the parents to say stop, or whatever is done differently to break the repetition that doesn't allow creative evolution.
And that can happen in a dream space? Does it have to happen through an accident?
It could happen in an awaking moment. It can happen in a snap.
Right.
Remember, time's an illusion to walk-in, walk-outs. Time is not a factor to them.
Okay, so that's another little myth about walk-ins, that it's always related to a huge accident, and then you wake up and you're a different person. You don't know what's going on. It happens, but doesn't have to happen.
Yeah, most of those are not walk-ins. Those are the original person is, or changed factions. While they were on the other side, they got a great spiritual teacher that showed them the wrongness in their thinking.
Interesting. Cool.
Okay, so let me give another example. So let's say we have somebody who's going to be born into a difficult culture, let's say like the Muslim culture. So at a very young age, women are going to be programmed to be less empowered. And you have a faction change and a walk-in where that child suddenly becomes super rebellious, doesn't follow the Muslim traditions, etc., etc., etc. That is a pretty common cultural revolution, so that younger souls, or souls that don't have a lot of experience in these very advanced deformative cultures, and I see deformative because they take you out of positive formation into deformation, so that you can get a sample of it, so the powerful soul can come in and battle the culture within the lineage framework.
Yeah. So being born in the wrong soul family, if you wish.
It's a very common reason. It's very common to create walk-in, walk-out scenarios. But I want to say this, walking in and walking out is not a common thing. It is a very rarely used thing. There are 7 billion people in this world, 7,300,000,000. And then there's another 10 billion in the astral world and another 20 billion in the hollow earth world. Walk-ins and walk-outs happen in all 3 frequencies, begin at a very low level. So don't think it's like the rising of the falling of the sun every day walk-ins. It's a very small number. unless it's in a grander awakening scale in which the prime creator is creating avenues of factionary changes, because the factions belief need to change because it's so ingrained into repetition.
Yeah. Very cool. Is this a good place to just throw in the soul shard politics?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the soul shard politics, because, we all talk about the politics, obviously, with us humans, beings, with bodies, and we're fighting our parents, and we're fighting families and friends and all of that. So you've introduced me. When we were talking about my situation, you talk about soul shard politics, and that was something like, wow.
Soul family politics.
Soul family politics. So
yes.
Say something on that.
So there are certain soul families who follow a set of factions or a set of spiritual ideologies. And then they create a variety of lineages in which we can incarnate or reincarnate in. And let's say you have soul family A that is going to be Muslim, Italian, Chinese, and African American. And those 4 lineages are going to try to regularly incarnate and reincarnate with each other with a variety of cultural programming. And each fetus in each womb is going to have its different way of creating blueprints and synchronicities based off of their astral teachers who help them plan lives while they're a fetus in the womb. And so those 4 races and the cultures that come with them will have their innate limitations. And those would be the soul family politics. You have soul family elders, the ones who have been in the lineage long enough and see the limitations of different ideologies and cultures throughout many different IAMs, attempts at breaking through the great glass wall of you can't be an awakened being in a time of great limitations. Okay? And all the souls are going to try, what do I got to do to be a super genius in 1732? Well, there were lots of super geniuses, except they were farmers, and they didn't have the education to use their super genius. The limitation of the culture and the times. Now you have, let's say, Muslim, African-American, Asian, and whatever else. The Asian and the this and that meet, which creates a situation where the family doesn't have lack, has wealth, which can send the children to school, or the Asian culture forces them to go to school and only become a doctor, but doesn't allow their freedom of choice. And those become the politics between multiple soul family elders who are choosing a pod of people incarnating with them.
Mm-hmm. So let me throw in the soul shard family politics too. So, and correct me if I'm wrong here, it's like you can be living in the family and get on okay until you start realizing that some of the shards of your, I don't know, whoever you're living with in that family are actually opposing your awakening, if you wish.
Yes.
And they might not even know it. They probably would never think that they do that. But on a soul shard level, you're actually having this fight. You're having this politics going on.
Domination and control in its classic expression.
I mean, for me, that was a new thing. Like, wow, that is so cool, or not, Okay.
They have their politics. Their politics is just as divisive as ours.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of zealots and a lot of soul families who pretend to be soul family elders. Okay? They're the ones that have, 10 lifetimes in a row with white picket fence and money and this and that, but don't actually have to earn anything. They don't have to earn their awakening. Right.
And there are various reasons for that. And the reasons are the same. Why don't they choose self-healing? I don't know, because they've been prosecuted so many lifetimes or It doesn't really matter. But the fact is, you've got to be aware of that. So this old saying that we're all family, and because we're in the same family, we have to love each other. It's not bullshit. We don't have to actually be very aware what's going on in the unseen.
Mm-hmm. So one of the early statements I made when I came out, which a lot of people had a lot of time of processing, is part of what made the Galactic Historian and Andrew today is over the last 10, 20 something million years, I made it a point to incarnate into every soul family that was a part of the Great Awakening. Now, that in its own right is a very rare experience. There's not a lot of souls or soul families that will allow that to happen. What it does is gives me inside information on long-term soul family politics, incarnation processes, which also makes it innately very easy for me to do sessions and readings and access high capacity information, because I innately know the factions, politics, and why those politics are driven into hardened ideologies as a reincarnation or incarnation.
That takes that old saying as a healer is, I've been there, done it, takes it to a different level, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
I've fucking been there and done it, every soul family.
Yeah, and when I encounter soul family elders who finally ponder, he actually was in our group. Wait, he technically still is. Wait. How everyone's politics and secrets? Yes. That was the whole point of incarnating. And doing this as me, as that entity, standing frequency and time, telling all the soul families, put down the soul family politics. We are all one. And if at the soul family level before incarnation you have divisiveness, what's going to happen when everyone starts incarnating? The divisiveness is going to get out of control. And the divisiveness starts at the soul family elders, who are regularly allowing inexperienced souls into soul families that are meant for super experienced souls.
Well, it's still a choice, yeah.
It's still a choice.
It's still a choice.
And there's no shame, blame, or guilt in there. There just has to be fundamental acceptances that aren't finiting rules of limitation. Okay?
But, okay, with this free will, would you say that whatever you are choosing as a soul, you wouldn't be choosing it if you wouldn't know how to handle it on some level, even if you create a walkout?
When you're in the fetus in the womb with the infinite access to the blueprints, you have a percentage of odds of will it work. And a lot of fetuses operate on, I got 10% chance of it working.
Oh, really?
I got a 3% chance of it working. Fuck it, roll the dice.
But those are the hardcore ones. Yeah.
And then they fail and they're stuck, and then they use the walk-in.
Get me out of here.
Which is very limited, and so then they're stuck with that life, and then they die, and they go through the life review, and then they plan the next one and forget that they've rolled the dice on the same action many times.
Oh, really?
Yes. It's because once the fetus gets access to the infinite blueprints, it realizes the potentiality of every life. And part of the fetus building is you need these fundamental building blocks. And if you don't have a lot of the fundamental building blocks to get you from point A to point B to point C, what it looks like when you get to the end, like if you're building a ship out of metal and all you have is you build a ship out of wood at the end, it's still a ship that gets you there, but it doesn't have the same aspects and qualities of the metal ship.
So let me actually ask you, because we always talk about, ghosts. So when you pass over and you stay as a ghost, you are from an awareness level, you're not much more aware than you were actually with a body at times. So when you go through the live review, it's also not a given that all of a sudden your frequency and vibration just exponentialize and you have all the level of awareness available to you, right?
Right. A lot of times when the life review starts, the soul I am is shattered into thousands of different shards, and it's the oversoul that comes in and patches them back together and takes out the negative soul shards and puts them into a secondary file where another fetus in another womb may use that soul shard from a past life and integrate it into the infinite blueprint fetus choice so that that shard can get resolution in another lifetime. Because that shard's not an I am anymore. There's actually shards were never I ams to begin with.
Yeah. So what you're saying is there's help.
Yes.
There's help from the oversoul, if you wish.
Who's there to help you with the greater experience of integrating lifetime to lifetime to lifetime.
Yeah, but we have access to the oversoul now too, in this lifetime now, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's one thought away. Will you believe in it? Will you trust it?
Yeah. I mean, might as well. Instead of waiting to do the live review, might as well just start now.
So Justin is saying, so we're stuck reincarnating? No, that's light worker bullshit. You're incarnating or reincarnating. And some of you, your first half of your life, maybe you may be a reincarnating soul going through the bullshit. And if you break through the reincarnation, you're an incarnating soul. Or you might start as an incarnating soul and then run into a bunch of badass people who make you a reincarnator, repeating their karmas. And you can be both at the same time, depending on the issues in the family, the linear family itself.
So would you also say that some of the souls, like walk-ins or not, are like firefighter souls, and they say, okay, I'll come and I'll walk in, and because they do it all the time and they're familiar already of how they do it? Because I almost think this is not the first time I've done this.
No, it's not the first time you've done it. And again, walk-ins are not a large volume of our population. Most of the time, once you get a body, you got to follow through with it, because it's a part of becoming. So you've done the entire wheel of reincarnation and incarnation. You've done every aspect that the finite societies allow you to have from generation to generation to generation. The society is finite, and family expressions are finite in this linear world of existence.
So I have done it before.
Yes, you have done it before, but for completely different reasons.
So let me say something there, because I read something about grief, and I just want to mention that, because we often stay away from grief. We don't want to go into grief. We don't want to actually allow ourselves to be vulnerable to experience grief. And very often with those records of these people that have walk-ins, they have a level of depression or really sadness, or like, fuck it, I can't handle this anymore. And then it's almost like how they explain it, that there's like an energetic portal that is opening to allow that soul exchange. Do you think that grief is a good emotion to trigger it?
No, I think that's once again somebody explaining something they didn't understand the mechanics of the experience. Grief is necessary for a soul and soul shards to learn and understand. Now, there are certain situations where a very powerful life plan and formula has been created through many soul families over many linear time frequencies over 2-3 generations to align a perfect love of this and that. And war comes and destroys that because of the unpredictability factor. And that grief can become so much where walk-ins, walkouts happen. Whenever there's heavy times of war, the amount of walk-ins is much more frequent, because there are certain souls who can't handle that grief. But in general, non-war terms, when a person dies, you still have to deal with the grief as a part of long-term contract, because that person had a death date as a contractual thing even before they were born.
Yeah. I love to look at grief as praise, to add praise to it. Praise and celebration of life, obviously,
Yes.
And if we're not allowing ourselves to grieve, then actually we are not celebrating and praising that person's life either. So I think, that's that thing, don't stay away from grief, allow it.
That's right. And then allowing yourself to grow through grief and be able to love again.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Good. Well, what else can we talk about on walk-ins? Because, all these questions I have now, they're so irrelevant, because what types of walk-ins does it really matter, Does it really matter?
In the long-term scale, it doesn't really matter. But in this short-term conversation of the stuff that we've talked about, in the hour and 28 minutes that we've been talking, we've filled people up full of information. Okay?
Yeah.
And they need time to process that. And some people have been asking some good questions, and other people are still in that processing state where the questions they ask, sometimes they fill in their own answer, or they're confusing themselves. But in this particular situation, when we talk about walk-ins, as I said, it's a very limited number. And we're at a time where humanity itself will have to choose its own personal metal, where you may have a contract when the time comes that, you know, you have a walk-in that's there, but you don't have to walk out. Okay? You don't have to. You may say, I want to be a part of this damn awakening. I spent all this lifetime in it, no matter how bad it's been. I want to see it live on TV. Okay?
So they're just not using the option they have in their contract.
Right. They're not using the option. Or the walk-in comes in and is a co-spirit with them, like a manifested guide.
Yeah. So I had that for a couple of years, apparently, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You never told me when the walkout was. Was it when I was 19?
You have to figure that out on your own.
Oh, for God's sake, he's so cagey. He doesn't tell me anything.
I tell you things all the time. I just can't tell you what you have to figure out on your own.
Give it a gun. Okay, so I was 19 when my walkout happened. It doesn't really matter, but sometimes people say when you have those co-hosting, it could create more confusion than just having.
Yes. If you have another voice in your brain that's not yours, and you're like,
yeah,
it can call you schizophrenic.
Yeah. Yes. So I don't think it's a choice that you make lightly to say, okay, well, come in, and I stay with you. Actually, it's not like you come. That's not like you come home from work and I'm activating my walk-in contract. It don't work that way. No. And also, I don't think it's a great choice. I think you should take over and be responsible for
you. Must understand. Walking out, having a walk-in, walk-out scenario is not giving up. Giving up on yourself is giving up on yourself, which tells the universe you're not ready for experiences.
Yeah. I never looked at it as giving up. I always looked at it as a, sort of two souls working together, because it was a contractual, boo-ha. And then whenever we were ready, that was it. So thanks very much. Off you go.
So I see somebody in the chat room that's named Chris3. You're saying, I'm a walk-in and would love to hear Andrew's perspective on it and share my story. Would you like to come on and talk with us, Chris? We can bring you on. All right, very Robert, cool. Will you unmute Chris3?
Well, hi there, everyone.
Hi, Chris. Where are you calling from today?
I'm calling from Far Hills, New Jersey, about an hour west of Manhattan.
Far Hill, New Jersey. Welcome to the show. Tell us about your walk-in scenario. Actually, what did you think about today's show? And then tell us your story.
Well, I have been enjoying the show. I just popped on about 15 minutes ago. I was a little bit late doing some work, but and I always enjoy your shows. But the conversation's really very fascinating, because being a walk-in is obviously a very unusual thing. I had not realized, or I didn't know that I was a walk-in for a number of years, and the way that I was clued into it actually was by being recognized by a number of psychics over time. They would all just look at me across the room and kind of grab me by the arm and say, do you know that you're a walk-in? And so I looked into it and I thought, okay, maybe I am. But then when I recounted my memories of August 1994, I remembered a day where I woke up where I basically couldn't wake up. I had a dream. I'd been practicing the Carlos Castaneda system of waking up in my dreams. And when I called out for a blue scout to come and take me to another realm, I sort of woke up in my dream in my bedroom with my girlfriend not in the scene, but the entire bay window started flooding with an electric living liquid light. And the electric living liquid light flooded everything, including the room, including myself. And it energized me to the level in my dreams where I felt that I was dying. I felt that I was transitioning, and then I was like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And I couldn't wake up. And it stayed there for a while until, of course, I did wake up. And then I went on with my, day and just thought it was a dream. And within 2 months, I moved from the Cleveland area of Ohio to Manhattan and started a whole new life where I decided, I just went and I discovered who I was, and I became involved in a number of things, the holistic scene to digital technology and advanced virtual reality in 3D back in the early mid-90s. So from then until now, I've been a bit of a holistic junkie, jumping from one tradition to another, accumulating experience and knowledge. And I'm just curious. Well, there was a very interesting story when I was having my Dark Night of the Soul in 2008, and I'd acquired an entity that had really gotten into me. I was being, it was the Dark Night of the Soul, so let's just say it was not very fun, but it had its fun moments. And that when I was on the table from having my friend who was a Barbara Brennan graduate and a very well-known good Barbara Brennan healer, take it out, she said that she saw two new cords that she had never seen before in a human being to another set of parents, to basically my parents from the other side, from wherever it was that I had come from. So she asked me if I wanted to find out who they were, make a connection, to see where it goes. And I agreed, and I did not, I believed it. I understood it was really out there, but it was quite an experience to learn where I came from before I walked in, because it's certainly not in the normal scope of people, even from a intergalactic
yes,
cosmic.
because you were a very rare trans-dimensional walk-in.
Right.
As soon as you said the blue light is where I realized there was actually a technological system transferring you as a walk-in between one galaxy and another.
Ah, okay.
And there was a specific purpose for that. The specific purpose was the you that was in the body was going to go to the other galaxy and teach them about the harshnesses of Earth, and
Right.
use your Akashic record to show them about what source disconnection really was. And the part of you from the other galaxy was going to come here, was going to bring a whole other perception of how to connect to galactic source that is not this galaxy, which is still oneness through galactic perceptions.
Right.
And it's why you jumped into the higher frequency spirituality stuff, VR, all of that. So you're a trans-galactic walk-in that that had technological systems, not a natural birth process, a spiritual birth contract process to do that.
So are you saying that the process was not not a normal spiritual contract of walking in?
Correct. Not a normal one. But free will is free will. However you get it done is however you get it done. So is there pre-birth planning? Absolutely. That just used technology as the medium.
And which kind of technology are you meaning? Like an electronic?
The Blu-ray spectrum.
Right. Okay, that would make sense. Indigo being my favorite color, you might say.
And I love your image of the unicorn farting rainbows.
It's got a much bigger rainbow, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that sometimes. And there was one day in 2013, shortly after I discovered your broadcasts, that I remember taking a shower and feeling a unicorn energy, literally a unicorn, kind of merging in with me. And because from a technology point of view, from my career path, I'm always kind of accused of being a unicorn because of what it is I do, although it hasn't quite happened just yet. So it's a fun metaphor. But I remember one day it truly felt that a unicorn had just merged its presence in with me on a level that of joy and fun that I just can't quite describe. I don't know, maybe you can see into that or something. Is there anything that you'd like to see or you can see or like to share?
So I will simply say this. When you had your trans-dimensional walk-ins, trans-galactic walk-in, you had to use the guides that were here. And the version of you that walked to the other galaxy had to use your guides from over there. And what that was is one of your guides figured out how to cross galactic dimensions and be here with you now.
Right. Okay.
And its representation of the unicorn was the only thing in myth that it could show you. It was that unique to this sector of galaxy.
Well, okay. You want to hear something crazy?
Sure.
Okay. So when I was on the table, having had that entity removed, the thing that she said, that she says, "You're not going to believe this." Okay, so because it was during my Dark Night of the Soul, I was not necessarily being, a good boy. and she said that my mother was like a fairy, like a human-sized fairy, like a fairy queen, and my father was actually a centaur.
Not uncommon. That's not uncommon. No, not uncommon.
So now this, to me, in terms of my left brain thinking, leads me to question and my perceptions of the nature of the dimensions, whether they're the mythical dimension, they're not the harsh or the dense 3D dimension that we're in, but more in an astral dimension or an energetic dimension where light's more pliable for beings
or a hollow earth dimension. Humans and horses have been simultaneously sharing lives and formats and soul families for millions of years. Okay. Right. Horse did not originally come from Earth. It was brought here from some of the original horsing worlds. So a human centaur hybrid mix, it very much is a regular incarnation in hollow earth as well as astral earth, and they have immigrated to other dimensions. Now, many centaurs mate with fairies. Now, you're saying queen or princess energy. That means they have a highly refined changeling. I call it changelings because they can change forms at aspect and change their beliefs at will too. Fairy type energy. When they mate with a centaur and have an offspring, that is a fairy centaur human offspring, which has a very specific purpose of creating change by challenging the factions that are in the incarnation process to think bigger and stronger, because oftentimes the factions themselves are limiting concepts. And the hybrid centaur fairy there is to show that the factions that are running material concepts, that their very nature of what they're thinking is low frequency. And that you're going to come in to be a unique high frequency faction bashing system.
That's about right. But it's always done with fun as well, you know.
Which is the way you have to do it, because if you're a faction bashing warlord, you're not going to do it right. Okay.
All right, I'll just have to smirk around and get everybody laughing.
Yes.
Fantastic.
So anyways, Martina, thank you for taking my time, my question, and sharing.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. That's so exciting.
Martina, did you want to ask him anything?
No, I'm just so excited. I don't have any questions. No.
I'll tell you one more little detail, one short detail. When I was learning Theta healing, doing some Theta healing courses, I'd asked the person who was working with me to find the moment that I had walked in, and the date that came out was one of the early days of August. And I noticed that when I compared that date with my actual birth date as the incarnation of the body that is here, that in the tradition of the cards of destiny, like seventhunders.com, that I had the exact same Queen of Diamonds identity.
Okay.
I just thought that was really fascinating. It was just a confirmation that, you know,
those were your personal confirmations on the journey, which were part of your validation and proof journey.
Correct.
Before you go, before you run off, what is your actual educational background?
Well, I studied history and physics in college. And after 3 years, I wrote a sort of a cosmology that was a wrap up of a lot of things called All is Thought, so presenting a holographic universe of consciousness and a number of things. And after that, I confused everyone. So I just dropped out and moved to Manhattan. And then
technology?
I started learning programming computers in 1981 in Shaker Heights in third grade. And so I had an early access to it, but then I had the performing arts training, and I guess you could say that I fell into the conspiracy realist world in like 1990, 91, in exploring the secrets and the mysteries, the mystery schools, ancient history, the Atlantis, and etc.
Okay. Are you familiar with Corey Good's material?
Yes.
Do you know about the 20 and Back program?
Well, I'm familiar with that and many things. Yeah.
Okay. So now Corey has a very negative perspective on the 20 and Back program. Okay. There's also a positive perspective to it. And if I were to say that there was a part of you in the 20 and Back program how would you feel to that?
Well, I'm not saying that I would be surprised, but I would be surprised that I didn't know it.
Feel. Feel. Use empathy for this. Can you feel yourself in a 20 and back program?
Well, I just did. Just now I had the signal of a affirmative internally that I normally recognize.
That's your changeling aspect, who can do many things as the hybrid that you are while still living this life without the negative aspects of the 20 and back program affecting you.
So you're saying that I am already doing a 20 and back?
You're actually on 3 20 and back programs, but every time they try to put you back in your body, it didn't work. So they just put you back for another 20 and back.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
So
your soul's a conundrum to them, a complete conundrum. And it just reveals to them how inept they actually are with manipulating people.
Okay, so I have actually had experiences with the secret space program. And
I know, that's why I'm rigging it up.
The helicopters, and I feel like I've got the eye implants, so there are cameras in my eyes.
No, they can't function in you. The centaur DNA won't allow it.
Yeah, I was figuring because it seemed over time to go out. But
everything they do to you melts away, literally within hours.
Brilliant, I love that. So let me ask you this. This is one thing that I've been really dying to ask you for a long time because I'm not getting any answers anywhere. It has a little bit to do with some of the very good material, I guess, but the concept of how the planet on the other side of Mars, the asteroid belt, and the Akashic record of that planet, if that planet was populated by a very negatively inclined techno-organic kind of like a sapiens entity that caused that planet to be destroyed. Are you with me so far?
Yep, I understand.
Okay. So is that pretty much what kind of happened in the history of that planet, and that the black goo or the Akashic records crystalline material, crashed onto the planet and it's been kind of like a part of the whole black magic scene for about 12,000 years or so?
No, most of that story isn't real.
Okay.
It's created for whatever reason. Most of that isn't actual reality of how it happened. Now, there was a massive explosion, but it wasn't a planet. It was a created ship. It was not a naturally occurring planet with a celestial spirit inside it. You have to this is where Corey's it doesn't have the language to define what's a naturally occurring celestial planet versus a planet ship that's been created from the ground up and is run by high frequency artificial intelligence to pretend that it's a planet. Okay, so some of his materials spot on. So our solar system had a defense grid inside it that protected the 66 celestial bodies that were in here from invasion. Actual awake and aware celestial beings incarnating with life force on them. An invading force figured out how to phase into our reality without activating the defense system. And what they brought in was a planet ship that purposefully exploded, creating mass havoc within the system that shut down the defense grid and then opened up an invasion. Now, this was in conjunction with mass time travel assassinations of personalities who were outside of the solar system, past, present, and future, to destabilize time within the 66 celestial frequencies of incarnating. And then that planet that it was phased in here and exploded had other time travel agents who were then doing timeline genocide on the surface of all 65 worlds simultaneously to create a complete and total erasure of the time frequency here so they could re-imprint it with time and then stop the planet that they phased in to blow up so they could totally take over this reality without destroying the entire solar system. But things went wrong, and the actual planet, the planet ship that blew up, ended up scarring the rest of the solar system, and they used time travel to stop the rest of the timeline genocides.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then that began, because that was Lemuria times, then that began the long-term process of time-based, unnatural time rifts forming all over our solar system And that's why the Atlanteans and the Lemurians are their own ancestors of each other. Because time got blurred, completely and totally blurred in all factions of reality. And then they needed to disassemble the solar system. At one point, they took every planet out of the solar system and put them in some other nursery solar systems for a short period of time, because all the planets were greatly fractured and damaged. And then they reassembled the solar system from the ground up at about 7.5 million years ago as a reimprint, post-damage, survival, and allowing the species to go through a thriving system again, which then brought it back into this galactic linear time that allows immigrations from the modern galactic societies to be aware that this solar system is here and is the guardian of a great portal to the next galaxy that is in creation.
Right. And speaking of as an emissary from another galaxy, let me ask you: Am I free to? Am I under a level of surveillance by the powers that be because of the 20 and back?
No.
Am I invisible to them? Am I pretty occluded?
I'm going to give it a visceral definition. You're a fart that lingers in the elevator, but they don't know who did it. Okay?
I love it.
There's a stench. There's one here. We can't find him. So all too often, conspiracy light workers think they're being targeted. They don't need to target you. They have a system that measures everyone's light. And as soon as your light reaches a level of unacceptance, you're hit by another beam of light that reduces your energy. And we are figuring out how to raise our light so that they can't lower our light anymore. This is what CERN does. Right. And the bunches of programs that are in that. So the awakening is about figuring out how to create light, intense light, without other light dirtying our light. And the systems of light reduction that are out there. They don't need to target us. That's light worker conspiratorial bullshit. There's plenty of ingrained systems out there that are going to tell you if they're going to fuck the system up, throw the prediction system off.
Right.
Okay. And it's this social engineering that has come back and infected you in this way to make you think you're watched. If you were watched, you'd know it. Like at every level of every second, they'd never let it up on you. It's called a pressure appliance process.
Right. Well, I've had a few periods when it felt like that was the case.
But that was the imprint of the reality making you think it's real, but it wasn't.
Okay.
That's how effective their programming of our society is.
Right. Well, belief system is everything. And so if you're creating it, you're believing it. I mean, like I think that it's interesting the way that you discuss the Merkabah, because I think that it is often misunderstood, but people also don't know how to use it. There are like all of these different things you can do with it. I've done tremendous things with it. I love playing with it. It's a great Swiss Army knife of enlightenment, you might say, of just tools. But it certainly is much more and different from the way that it's taught.
Yes, and we got a funny statement in the chat. So the goal for us is all to be silent but deadly light farts. Yes. You'll kill the system the best way. Fart in the elevator and walk away.
Sync them up.
As a web designer, I've often said I fart great websites.
You fart great websites. Congratulations. Yeah. I fart great one-liners.
Fantastic.
All right, Chris, thanks a lot for calling in.
Thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you for sharing with me. Bye.
All right, brother. Take it easy.
Thank you.
All right, Martina, we're at the end of the show. Why don't you give a way for people to get a hold of you?
Yes, my website is www.synchronicities.co.uk. Here you go. Thanks, Rob. And then we have the Wednesday show, 5:00 p.m. UK time +1. Our Earth Nouveau Zoom tomorrow, and I'm going to host it tomorrow, so I'm probably going to carry on along those lines. So we'll see what comes up for tomorrow. I haven't made up my mind yet.
All right, everybody, you know who I am. You can go to my website, andrewbartzis.com, to sign up for the newsletter, all the free information that we got for you. All right, everyone, take it easy and have a great day.
Bye.
Stay posted for the release of Andrew's new book, The Galactic Historian, The World According to Andrew Bartzis. Coming out this summer.
each different bubble of reality is true.
A galactic historian is a person that looks at all the lines of dramatic karma.
Nudge, nudge, it's the holy grail.
Improvise. Mysterious.
It's counter psychic intelligence.
Why is DNA farming of this star cluster so important?
Because we do manifest our reality. We do create our reality.
Hello, let's create, let's co-create, and let's change this world with love. No matter if you're from Alpha Centauri or Earth, we all began with the same birthing process. We live in a limited point of view. Living the mystical life daily is about striving for the unlimited point of view. Each day, each human being gets an infinite amount of choices. Living the mystical life daily is about facing obstacles and challenges. The level of awareness that you are working at means you have a responsibility to be equal with it. How does one truly let go of expectation? You can make the moment that you wake up to the moment you go to sleep sacred. The keys to success: choice, 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 and choice.